Hi, I'm Ray Mascola. My company is targeting sales growth, and I'm going to talk about a concept called the benefits of using open-ended questions. And we're going to talk about them in the context of a business relationship, working on your business. Communication is the most important skill in our lives. We spend years learning how to read and write, and years learning how to speak. But what about listening? What kind of training have we had that enables us to listen carefully, to really listen, to deeply understand another human being? Probably none, right? There's a lot of ineffective styles out there, and I'm guilty as the next guy or the next woman. Sometimes we ask a lot of questions, and then we answer our own question. That's a monologue. We're not involving anybody else. Sometimes we make statements that don't reach out and don't elicit any other opinion but an obvious response from the questioner or the statement person. You're not reaching out. You're not engaging. Asking closed-ended questions, and there's more on that later. Hot enough for you today? Nice day, huh? How's business? It doesn't really imply that you're interested in connecting with the other person. And then, of course, everybody is guilty of cutting in as the other person has begun to talk with our own observation. They're talking about something that you may have started the conversation on, and then you go back to something that you did or your observation, cutting the other person off. One of my heroes is Stephen Covey. He wrote a book in the 1980s called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was a business icon book, but it has transcended that to become just a personal communication primer, in my estimation. Habit number 5 is the one that has attracted me most. It goes like this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Most people are speaking or preparing to speak. A term I'm going to introduce now is called empathetic listening. Empathetic listening leads to open-ended questions. This style is effective in understanding what the other person has to say, and in the process conveying that you want to understand and that you are understanding. Like many people, I wrestle with seeking to first, wanting to be understood. I want my point to get across. I want my airtime. In doing this, I inadvertently ignore what the other person has to say, and worse, I'm pretending that I'm listening. With this style, I only hear certain parts of the conversation, but the bigger point is I'm missing the meaning of the other person's conversation. I'm missing the point entirely. Most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. Remember, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Consequently, you decide prematurely what the other person means before he or she finishes communicating. Does that sound familiar to you? And in a business context, that's death, because you think you understand what the other person said, and you're not understanding what the other person said, and you're making a recommendation or an observation based on a false premise. Here are some examples of closed-ended questions. Would you like to go out on a date with him? Would you like vanilla or chocolate? Are you feeling better today? Have you completed your homework? I knew how to answer that one. Is this your final answer? Were you planning on becoming a policeman, or plug in your own word? Would you like to make dinner reservations together tonight? Are you all set? Now your turn. How would you reword these examples? You can have a lot of fun with that in terms of opening up the dialogue by giving the other person a chance to know that it's not just vanilla or chocolate. You're interested in what they prefer. Here are some examples of open-ended questions. What were you planning to buy today at the supermarket? What kind of ice cream would you like? Assuming we're at Kimball's, I guess. What is your favorite memory from high school? How will you help the company if you're hired to work for us? How do you plan to make it a surprise party? How did you and your new friend meet? What is the impact to you on being in combat when you were in the Army? Notice we're asking a lot of how, what, why, where kind of questions. Last question I'll put on here is, how did you manage to raise your children by yourself? These solicit an open response. A point that I'm going back to Stephen Covey again, a point that he makes, which I really love, he says, set aside your autobiography. That's the implication here is we're all guilty of saying, well, I did this and I did this. I just happened to go to a reunion myself, and people were telling me about how much money they made, and one guy said, I sold this building for $1.4 million. I just smiled. A lot of people are interested in their autobiography. That doesn't solicit a business relationship. Closed-ended questions give you facts. They're easy to answer. They're quick to answer. But most importantly, they keep control of the conversation with the questioner. Open-ended questions give the respondent the opportunity to think and reflect. Longer conversations. Now, I fully get it that in some situations it doesn't work to have a reflective conversation. But you want to have the setting when you're looking to delve into a potential business partner or potential client's business, you want to have that setting where you can ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions will give you opinions and, most importantly, feelings, because people make decisions based on feelings and passion. They may be reflective in their thinking, but they're finally going to make a decision based on feelings. And part of the feelings is, how do they connect with you? Does this person understand me and my business? Finally, open-ended questions leave the control of the conversation with the respondent, not with you or me. Empathetic listening. Empathetic listening leads to open-ended questions. This is extremely effective to focus on understanding what the other person has to say. And this is listening with the intent to understand. And that's not easy in terms of staying focused and staying concentrated, because the other person may have a style very different than your own. The person might not be as direct as you are, might be circumspect in their conversation. So to understand their points, you also have to concentrate and not be distracted by a style that's not similar to your own. Listening also involves, this is where it gets really tricky sometimes, nonverbals, in addition to the words actually said. Now, picking up the nonverbals can be fun in terms of understanding when the other person really is emphasizing a point, either a negative point, positive point, something that's important to that person. But again, as you observe those nonverbals, you don't want to get distracted by the overall message. So we're looking to focus on receiving information, thoughts, and feelings, rather than, again, focusing on your autobiography. This process takes time. We need to slow down and plan longer conversations. And of course, we know we live in a soundbite society, and the questioner likes to remain in control. Of course, as I said earlier, there are times when a quick answer is appropriate. The payoff. The payoff is accurately understanding the other person's concerns and priorities and conveying to them that you understand and that you care. That's how you build business relationships. Now, one of the things you can do at another time, is take this concept of open-ended questions and with a partner, try it out. Empathetic listening, you ask the person an open-ended question, give them a chance to respond, let that conversation play out back and forth a few times, and then switch gears and have person number 2 be the questioner and the first person again be the respondent, and try that process again with open-ended questions. It's a fun process, and then you get to see how skilled you are or how much work you need to put into it. And what really is challenging is let the process go back and forth a few times and see if you're still focused and still concentrating on what the other person says. At the end of each section, the first person, the questioner, ought to play back what they heard and have the respondent respond and see, is that what they actually said? Try that another time. Again, open communication is to seek first to understand. By committing to understand, we also learn to adjust. We had, say, a predisposition of what the other person was, what they cared about, what they were interested in, what their company was all about. If, as we ask these open-ended questions, we learn that we might not be on the mark. And we have to be astute enough and have that empathetic listening skill honed enough to adjust. And then again, the payoff is that when we adjust our presentations or adjust our conversations by including known facts and perceptions that we learned by actually listening and asking open-ended questions, we have a more impactful conversation. In business, this can lead to a deeper understanding of the prospect or your customer or your partner or your client. What motivates them? What challenges them? And what their response can be. Because you have a deeper understanding, you have a path to offering a wider, more creative solutions that delve into the current problem and the longer-term goals. And that builds a tighter relationship. The most important takeaway I'd like to say with this talk is that before evaluating and prescribing something to your client or your prospect, we need to remember that in business, that unless we understand the other person's style and priorities and really understand with open-ended questioning what's important to them, we really won't know how to advise them and recommend a course of action to them. Thank you.